7 Lessons from Buddha for a Calm, Fearless Heart. The journey toward a calm and fearless heart is not marked by the absence of fear, but rather by the deep understanding and transcendence of it. In the teachings of the Buddha, we find timeless wisdom that serves as a lantern in the dark corridors of anxiety, doubt, and emotional turbulence. Buddha did not promise a life without pain or difficulty. Instead, he offered tools to engage with life in a radically different way, a way that cultivates awareness, compassion, and inner strength. These tools are not bound by time or culture. They are universally applicable and eternally relevant. In an age where external distractions multiply and inner peace seems more elusive than ever, these teachings become not just philosophical curiosities, but lifelines. The world offers countless temporary solutions, distractions, medications, digital escapism, but none provide the enduring tranquility that arises from real self-understanding. Buddha's teachings invite us to turn inward, to see clearly the mechanisms of our suffering, and to dismantle them with presence and wisdom. This text is not merely a recitation of Buddhist principles, it is a deep exploration of how each teaching functions as a transformative mirror. These are not abstract doctrines, but living insights meant to be felt, questioned, and ultimately lived. Through them, the fearful heart dissolves, replaced by the courage born of clarity and the calm that comes from no longer clinging to illusions. Let us walk together through these 7 lessons. Each one is a gateway, not to escape life, but to enter it more fully. And through each, you will see how the fear that once defined you can become the teacher that sets you free. Embrace impermanence to disarm fear. Everything in life is subject to change. This is not just a philosophical idea. It is the foundational observation upon which all of the Buddha's insights were built. The leaves fall, relationships shift, bodies age, emotions rise and vanish, and even the stars eventually fade into nothingness. Yet despite living in a world where nothing is permanent, we resist this truth at every turn. We cling to what is pleasurable, we push away what is painful, and we fear anything that threatens the illusion of permanence we try so hard to maintain. Fear is born not in the event itself, but in our attachment to how we think things should be. We fear losing people because we believe they should stay. We fear failure because we believe success defines our worth. We fear death because we imagine life is meant to last forever. But what if we stopped resisting impermanence and instead began to see it as the ground upon which peace is built? The Buddha taught that all suffering arises from clinging to people, outcomes, identities, even to ideas. And clinging is only possible when we forget that all things are temporary. The moment we internalize the truth of impermanence, fear begins to lose its grip, because we no longer need things to stay the same in order to be at peace. Imagine holding a beautiful flower in your hand. If you try to clutch it tightly, you crush it. If you try to keep it forever, it withers anyway. But if you hold it lightly, appreciating it for the moment it offers, then you experience its full beauty without suffering. Life is the same. To hold anything lightly, with reverence but without possession, is to set yourself free. This doesn't mean we stop loving, dreaming, or building. It means we do so without attachment to permanence. We savor the moments as they come, and we release them when they go. In doing this, we enter a deeper, more sacred intimacy with life, one rooted in acceptance rather than control. Letting go does not mean losing. It means making space for what is real. In the practice of meditation, we see impermanence directly. We observe a thought arise, float by, and dissolve. We feel an emotion rise up in the chest like a storm, and then, with awareness, we watch it pass. The more we observe this, the more we see that nothing stays. And paradoxically, this is where real peace is found. not in what stays, but in the flow of what is. Even fear itself is impermanent. It may feel like a constant companion, but if you sit quietly and watch, you'll see that fear too has a life cycle. It arises, peaks, and passes. It is not you. It is a wave in the ocean of your being. And when you learn to observe it without identifying with it, you begin to live from the ocean, not the wave. This lesson is a call to stop fighting change and instead begin dancing with it. Life is movement. Everything that resists this flow creates tension. Everything that surrenders to it becomes grace. In the end, there is no safety in the illusion of control. The only true safety is in presence, in meeting each moment with open hands, open heart, and open eyes. This is the fearless heart, not one without emotion, but one that does not run from reality. So begin here, with the breath. Watch it come, watch it go. See how even this, something so simple, so intimate, is never still. It rises and falls like everything else. Let the breath become your teacher. Let impermanence become your liberation. If this teaching resonates with you and you feel called to walk this path of inner freedom, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. This journey of transformation is not one we make alone. Together, we can build a space where ancient wisdom meets modern life, a refuge for the calm and fearless heart. The illusion of self and the liberation from fear. At the very heart of Buddhist philosophy lies a profound and radical insight, that the self we cling to, the self we protect, the self we fear for, it is an illusion. This teaching is not intended to deny your experience, your memories, or your sense of continuity. Rather, it is meant to point to something deeper and far more liberating. The Buddha called this insight anatta, not self. It is not simply a belief to adopt or a doctrine to accept. It is a truth to be discovered through direct observation of your mind and experience. And when this truth is glimpsed, even for a moment, it loosens the fear that binds us. For fear is always rooted in the belief that there is a solid self to protect, to preserve, to maintain. But what if that very belief is the cage? We spend our lives building and defending the self. We create identities based on our achievements, relationships, roles, and histories. We say, "This is who I am," and then we spend enormous energy ensuring that nothing threatens that idea. If someone criticizes us, we feel attacked. If we fail at something, we feel diminished. If someone leaves us, we feel abandoned, all because we have tied our sense of self to impermanent conditions. And inevitably, because all things change, we suffer. The fear of rejection, the fear of death, the fear of failure, they all arise because we believe there is a permanent self who can be rejected, who can die, who can fail. But the Buddha invites us to look more closely. When you search for this self, what do you actually find? You find thoughts, emotions, sensations, memories, preferences, but all of these are fleeting. They arise and pass like clouds in the sky. None of them can be held on to. None of them define you because they are not constant. So where is the you that needs to be protected? When we look deeply into experience, we find processes, not a person. We find awareness flowing, but no one who owns it. This does not mean that we become nothing. It means we become free, free from the heavy burden of always trying to be someone, free from the fear that someone might threaten our identity, free from the constant need to defend an idea of ourselves. Instead, we rest in a deeper truth, that we are the open space in which life happens, that we are the witness to the dance of experience, not the dancer. And from that place, fear dissolves. Fear is only possible when there is something to lose. But when you realize that the self you thought you had is not a fixed thing, but a process, then what is there to lose? If you do not cling to your image, criticism cannot harm you. If you do not cling to your past, regret cannot haunt you. If you do not cling to your body, death cannot terrify you. You begin to live as space, not form, as presence, not personality. This is not an abstract or cold realization. It is filled with warmth, with peace, with vast compassion. Because when the illusion of separateness fades, what remains is connectedness. You stop seeing yourself as a lonely figure moving through a hostile world. You begin to see that there is no boundary between you and the world, that the fear that once protected you now isolates you, and when that wall falls, love rushes in. Meditation is the path to this realization, not by thinking about not self, but by observing. When you sit quietly and watch your mind, you see that thoughts come and go without your control. Emotions rise like waves and disappear. Even the sense of I am flickers and changes. And the more you observe, the more you see that there is awareness, yes, but not a fixed entity who owns it. Awareness is just aware. It needs no identity. This observation is not something to believe, it is something to discover. And when you do, you begin to loosen your grip. You stop reacting with fear every time your image is threatened. You stop needing to prove yourself, because there is no self to prove. You stop fearing death, because the awareness that sees life is not touched by death. What dies is the body. What fades is the story. But awareness remains. This is the secret behind the serenity of great masters. It is not that they do not feel emotion, it is that they are not enslaved by the illusion of self. They move through life with grace, not because life is easy, but because they are not clinging to anything. They respond to life instead of reacting. They are free because they know that the I is a wave, not the ocean. And this freedom is available to you. Not after years of practice, not after you become spiritual enough, but right now. In this very moment you can pause and look within. You can notice that everything you take to be you is moving. Your breath is moving. Your thoughts are moving. Your sensations are moving. So what is still? What is observing? Rest there. Rest in that which sees, but is not seen. That is where freedom lives. That is where fear ends. This insight does not make you passive, it makes you powerful. Because when you no longer act from fear, you act from clarity. You are no longer trying to protect an ego so you can speak truthfully. You are no longer afraid of rejection so you can love deeply. You are no longer afraid of loss so you can give freely. This is what it means to be fearless, not to be hard, but to be open. Of course, the illusion of self is persistent. The mind will return again and again to its old patterns. You will still feel hurt, still feel fear, still feel attachment. But each time you remember that these feelings are not happening to a fixed you, they begin to lose their sting. You remember that the self is a story, and you are the awareness in which the story appears, and you return to presence. In daily life, this means pausing when you feel triggered. Instead of reacting, ask, who is the one who feels threatened? What am I defending? Is there really a self here to protect, or is there just fear, just thought, just sensation? This simple inquiry breaks the spell. It allows space to return. And in that space, fear loses power. It also means being gentle with yourself. The mind is conditioned to believe in the self. It will take time to unravel that conditioning. But every time you sit in stillness, every time you return to presence, every time you observe rather than identify, you are weakening the illusion. You are remembering who you are beyond the story. The Buddha did not teach not self to confuse us. He taught it to free us. He saw that the deepest fear, the fear of death, the fear of loss, the fear of not being enough, was all rooted in the illusion of a solid, separate self, and he offered a way out, a way not of escape, but of seeing clearly, a way of awakening. And that awakening is possible for you, not someday, but now. With every breath, you can return. With every moment of awareness, you can remember. With every act of love, you dissolve the boundaries of self. In this way, fear becomes a guide. Every time you feel fear, it is an invitation to look deeper, to ask what self you are trying to protect, to notice how that self is just thought, just habit, just memory, and to let go, again and again, to let go. You do not need to become fearless. You only need to stop clinging to what fear defends. You only need to remember that you are not the storm, you are the sky. If this insight has touched something deep within you, if you feel a spark of recognition, I invite you to join us on this path. Subscribe to our channel and continue walking this journey of awakening with us. Together, we can dissolve the illusion and live from the calm, fearless heart that was always waiting beneath the surface. Mindfulness as the gateway to fearless presence. The mind, left to its own habitual patterns, is a master of fear. It constructs threats where there are none. It replays past failures as if they still have power. It imagines catastrophic futures and reacts to them as if they were real. It spins stories of inadequacy, separation, and impending doom. And we, lost in these stories, feel as though fear is inescapable. But what if the problem is not fear itself, but the way we relate to our own minds? This is where the Buddha's teaching of mindfulness becomes the most revolutionary practice of all. Mindfulness, or sati in the Pali language, is often misunderstood as mere attention or awareness. But in its truest form, mindfulness is a fearless intimacy with what is. It is not about controlling thoughts or replacing negative ones with positive ones. It is about meeting each moment exactly as it is, without judgment, without resistance, and without distraction. It is the courage to face our direct experience without filters or avoidance. And in that radical presence, something astonishing happens. Fear loses its ground, not because it is banished, but because it is seen clearly. When we are mindful, we are not trapped in the past or lost in the future. We are anchored in the now. And fear cannot survive in the now. Fear always requires time. It needs a future to worry about or a past to regret. The present moment is like a flame that burns through the web of mental projections. In it, we find what is actually here, not the story, not the image, but the raw, living truth. Consider what happens when you are afraid. The mind races, the body tenses, the heart beats faster. These are not the problem. These are the body's intelligent responses. The suffering comes when we resist them, when we create mental narratives about them, when we tell ourselves that something is wrong, that we are in danger, that we are not safe. But when we turn toward our fear with mindfulness, everything changes. To be mindful of fear is to become its witness instead of its victim. It is to say, here is fear in the body, here is tightness in the chest, here is a thought about failure, here is a sensation in the gut. Without labeling, without pushing it away, we simply observe. And this observation itself is transformative, because it reveals a deeper truth. You are not the fear, you are the awareness that sees it. This distinction cannot be overemphasized. As long as we believe we are our thoughts or emotions, we are enslaved by them. But when we rest in awareness, we realize that all phenomena, thoughts, emotions, sensations, are visitors. They come and go. They arise in awareness and dissolve back into it. They are not you. You are the space in which they unfold. And mindfulness makes this space visible. It allows us to disidentify from the storm and rest in the stillness. It does not mean the storm stops, but it means we are no longer swept away by it. We remain grounded, rooted in presence, watching the movement of the mind without being moved by it. Mindfulness is not passive, is fiercely alive. It's the discipline of coming back again and again to this moment, When the mind wanders into fear, we bring it back to the breath. When the body tightens, we meet it with compassion. When the heart races, we place a gentle hand on it and say, "Yes, this too." This is not weakness. This is profound courage. Because it takes bravery to be with what is painful without escaping, fixing, or denying it. Over time, mindfulness rewires the nervous system. The habitual reactions soften. The conditioned fear responses lose their automatic grip. The brain begins to relax its survival patterns and open to deeper wisdom. You begin to see that most of what you feared was a phantom, a shadow projected by the mind. You begin to trust the present moment as your refuge, not because it is always pleasant, but because it is always real. And in the real, there is power. In the now, there is clarity. When you are here, truly here, fear becomes transparent. It may still arise, but it no longer dominates. You see its edges, you feel its movement, you bow to it, and it passes. This is the beginning of freedom. Daily practice is essential, not just sitting on a cushion for formal meditation, though that is vital, but bringing mindfulness into every corner of life. Washing dishes, driving, walking, speaking. Each moment is an opportunity to return to presence, to feel the breath, to notice the sensations, to listen without an agenda, to speak without rehearsing, to live without defending. Fear often arises in our interactions with others. We fear rejection, judgment, disapproval. Mindfulness transforms relationships because it allows us to listen deeply and speak truthfully. When we are present, we are not reacting from old wounds or future anxieties. We are simply responding to what is, and this authenticity is magnetic. It invites others to relax. It opens the door to connection, to real intimacy. In solitude, mindfulness becomes the doorway to self-knowledge. You begin to see your patterns, your beliefs, your attachments, not to judge them, but to understand them, to meet them with kindness. This inner seeing is the root of transformation. Because what you see clearly, you no longer need to fear. The unknown is frightening, but once it is known, once it is brought into the light of awareness, it loses its power. The Buddha often used the image of a lamp in the darkness. Mindfulness is that lamp. It does not eliminate the darkness, but it illuminates it. And in that light, we no longer stumble. We see where we are, we see who we are, and we walk with dignity. One of the greatest gifts of mindfulness is its simplicity. You do not need to change anything. You only need to see your thoughts, see your feelings, see your breath, see the world, with bare attention, with loving awareness, with gentle curiosity. And in that seeing, transformation happens on its own. The knot unties, the grip softens, the heart opens. It is important to remember that mindfulness is not a quick fix. It is a lifelong path. There will be days when the mind is wild, when fear is loud, when presence feels impossible. These are not failures. These are part of the journey. The key is to return. Always return. The breath is always here. The body is always here. Awareness is always available. When you feel overwhelmed, come back to the breath. Feel it enter the nostrils. Fill the lungs. Release. Come back to the body. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Come back to the moment. Look around. See what is actually here. Not the story, but the truth. This is your refuge. Over time, mindfulness becomes your default state. Not perfectly, not always, but more and more, you begin to live from presence. And in presence, fear cannot take root. It may whisper, but it does not control. It may visit, but it does not stay. You become the host, not the guest, the observer, not the observed. This is the heart of fearlessness, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to run from it, the willingness to meet it with open eyes, the capacity to hold it in awareness without collapsing. This is the strength that mindfulness brings. Not armor, but openness. Not avoidance, but intimacy. And as you deepen in mindfulness, you begin to taste a new kind of joy. A joy that is not dependent on circumstances. A joy that arises from simply being, from walking in silence, from drinking tea with full attention, from watching the wind move through the trees. This joy is subtle, but profound. It is the joy of being alive, awake, and unafraid. You begin to see beauty where you once saw threat. You begin to feel compassion where you once felt judgment. You begin to trust life, even in its uncertainty, because you are no longer trying to control it. You are simply living it, one breath at a time. And so mindfulness becomes more than a practice. It becomes a way of being, a way of walking through the world with eyes wide open, with a heart unguarded, with a spirit unshaken. This is the gift the Buddha gave us, not a dogma but a doorway, not a promise of escape but a path to presence. If you are ready to live with that kind of presence, if you are drawn to the clarity that mindfulness offers, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Together we can walk this path, not as escapees from fear, but as warriors of awareness, anchored in the now, rooted in truth, and free in the only place we ever truly live, this moment. Compassion as the antidote to fear. Fear thrives in isolation. It grows stronger when we feel alone, misunderstood, or disconnected from others. At its root, fear tells a story of separation. Me versus them, me against the world, or even me against myself. The teachings of the Buddha offer a profound counter to this narrative. Compassion. Compassion is not a sentimental emotion or a moral obligation. It is a powerful force of connection that has the capacity to dissolve the barriers we create around ourselves. When we begin to practice compassion, not only toward others but also toward ourselves, fear begins to loosen its grip. The heart softens, the mind becomes less defensive, and the illusion of separation starts to fade. To understand the role of compassion in fearlessness, we must first understand how fear operates. Fear tells us we are in danger. Sometimes that danger is physical and immediate, but more often it is psychological and imagined. We fear rejection, humiliation, abandonment, inadequacy. These fears arise not from direct threats, but from our internal judgments, judgments that tell us we are not enough, not worthy, not lovable. And when these judgments are directed outward, we begin to fear others too. We see enemies instead of fellow human beings. We see threats instead of suffering. We see competition instead of connection. Compassion interrupts this pattern. When we cultivate compassion, we deliberately choose to see the humanity in ourselves and others. We choose to look beneath the surface of behavior and see the pain, the longing, the confusion that drives people, including ourselves, to act the way they do. This does not mean condoning harm or ignoring injustice. It means understanding that behind every harmful act is a mind caught in ignorance, a heart clouded by fear, a soul that has forgotten its own light. The Buddha taught that hatred never ceases by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law, and this law applies not only to our enemies, but to the enemy within. The voice of fear, the voice of self-criticism, the voice of shame. When we turn toward that voice with compassion, something shifts. We stop fighting ourselves. We stop judging our fear. We begin to hold it like we would hold a frightened child, not to silence it, but to reassure it that it is safe, that it is seen, that it is loved. This kind of inner compassion is revolutionary. Most of us have spent our lives trying to be good enough, strong enough, smart enough. We have internalized the belief that if we just achieve more or improve ourselves enough, the fear will go away. But fear does not vanish through achievement. It vanishes through understanding, and understanding grows in the soil of compassion. When we sit in meditation and a painful emotion arises, say, anxiety, we often try to get rid of it. We tighten, we resist, We tell ourselves we shouldn't feel this way. But what if we did the opposite? What if we welcomed the anxiety as a messenger? What if we placed a hand on our heart and said, "It's okay to feel this. I'm here with you"? This simple gesture can dissolve layers of tension, because what the fear wants most is not for us to conquer it, but to meet it, to acknowledge its presence, to offer it the kindness it never received, and this kindness, once extended inward, naturally begins to flow outward. As we soften toward ourselves, we soften toward others. We begin to see that just as we carry fear, so does everyone else. The angry man on the street, the rude co-worker, the distant partner, all of them are responding from their own wounds, their own fears, their own unmet needs. When we see this, our response changes. Instead of reacting with anger, we pause, we breathe, we ask, what must this person be feeling to act this way? This question alone can dissolve judgment and awaken compassion. It's important to understand that compassion is not weakness. It is the strongest force in the universe. To be compassionate in a world that teaches us to harden, to defend, to attack, that is strength. To meet cruelty with understanding, to meet fear with love, to meet pain with presence. This is the warrior's path. The Buddha was not passive. He was fierce in his clarity, unwavering in his commitment to truth. But his strength was rooted in compassion, not in domination, not in control, but in love. Fear cannot coexist with true compassion. When the heart is open, fear dissolves. Not because we've removed every threat, but because we are no longer seeing the world through the lens of separation. We are no longer afraid of others because we see ourselves in them. We are no longer afraid of pain because we know how to meet it with tenderness. We are no longer afraid of failure because we know our worth is not conditional. Compassion also gives us the courage to take wise action. It does not make us passive or indifferent. In fact, it motivates us to stand up against injustice, to protect the vulnerable, to heal the broken. But we act not from fear or anger, but from love. And action rooted in love is infinitely more powerful than action rooted in fear. To cultivate compassion, we can begin with simple practices. One of the most profound is the practice of metta, or loving-kindness meditation. In this practice, we silently repeat phrases such as, "May I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease." We begin with ourselves, then gradually extend the phrases to others. Loved ones, neutral people, difficult people, and eventually all beings. This practice may seem mechanical at first, but over time, it reshapes the heart. It dissolves barriers. It awakens the deep truth that we are all connected. Another way to cultivate compassion is through active listening. When someone speaks to you, especially when they are upset, practice being fully present. Don't try to fix them. Don't offer advice unless asked. Just listen. Listen with your whole being. Listen with the intention to understand. This kind of presence is rare. It is healing. It tells the other person, you matter, your pain matters, I am here with you. And in that space, transformation happens. Compassion also requires boundaries. It is not about tolerating abuse or neglect. It is about recognizing the dignity of all beings, including yourself. Sometimes the most compassionate act is to say no, to walk away, to protect your energy. But even then, we can act without hatred. We can leave without closing our hearts. This is the art of fierce compassion, love that is clear, strong, and rooted in truth. Over time, compassion becomes not something we do, but who we are. It becomes our natural response. We see suffering, and we move toward it, not away. We feel fear, and we hold it, not reject it. We meet each moment with an open heart. Not because it is easy, but because it is the only way to be truly free. The Buddha once said that if your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. This is the invitation, to turn toward your own pain with the same care you would offer a dear friend, to hold your own fear with the same tenderness you would offer a child, to look at yourself in the mirror and say, "You are enough, even now, especially now." This is the beginning of healing. This is the doorway to a fearless heart, not a heart that never feels fear, but a heart that knows how to love in the presence of fear, a heart that remains open even when the world feels harsh, a heart that does not close even when it breaks. When compassion becomes our default, fear no longer controls us. We may still feel it, but we do not obey it. We listen, we learn, we love, and we keep walking. We live from our deepest truth, not our deepest wound. We become a refuge for ourselves and for others. And in that refuge we discover a freedom that no fear can touch. If you feel the stirrings of that freedom, if you feel the call to live from a place of compassion and courage, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Together, we are building a space of truth, healing, and fearless love, a community where ancient wisdom meets the modern heart. Let us walk this path together, one breath, one act of kindness, one open heart at a time. The power of letting go as the path to inner freedom. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood yet profoundly liberating teachings in the path of the Buddha. It is often mistaken for passivity, for resignation, or for indifference to life. But true letting go is an act of immense courage. It is not a retreat, it is a sacred surrender, not out of defeat, but out of wisdom. It is the recognition that clinging, no matter how tightly we hold on, cannot protect us from the impermanence of all things. And it is through this release, through this unclenching of the heart and the mind, that we come to discover the calm and fearless state we have been seeking all along. We live in a culture that teaches us to accumulate, to acquire, to hold on. We gather possessions, we form identities, we build stories, we construct relationships around the idea that permanence is possible if we just work hard enough to maintain control. But life, in its unfiltered truth, refuses to be held in place. People change, circumstances shift, bodies age, time moves forward. To deny this reality is to invite suffering. To resist change is to fight the very current of existence. And in this futile battle, fear is born and fed, fear of loss, fear of uncertainty, fear of what lies beyond our control. The Buddha's path invites us into a new relationship with this truth. Instead of resisting the flow of life, we learn to move with it. Instead of grasping for security in things that are constantly shifting, we anchor ourselves in presence, in awareness, in the only reality that does not change. And this anchoring is only possible through letting go of the illusion of control, letting go of the attachment to outcomes, letting go of the need to be right, to be liked, to be perfect, letting go of the stories we tell about ourselves and others, letting go of the fear that we are not enough. Letting go is not a single event. It is a lifelong practice. It begins in small ways, releasing a grudge, forgiving someone who never apologized, choosing to step back instead of escalating an argument. It deepens as we begin to see how much of our suffering comes not from what happens to us, but from our refusal to accept what is. A loved one disappoints us, and we replay the moment endlessly in our minds, trying to rewrite it. A goal slips away, and we torture ourselves with what might have been. A part of our identity is challenged, and we respond with defensiveness and fear. All of this is suffering, created not by the event, but by our clinging to how we think things should be. The Buddha compared this kind of clinging to grabbing a burning coal. We do it out of habit, out of fear, out of the mistaken belief that holding on keeps us safe. But it is the holding on that burns us. The very act of clinging is what causes the pain, and the moment we release the coal, the moment we open our hand and let go, healing begins. Not because the pain vanishes, but because we are no longer feeding it. This lesson is not meant to be theoretical. It is meant to be lived. Start with something small, a thought that keeps coming back, a worry about something you cannot change, an expectation that always leads to disappointment. Sit with it. Notice the sensations in your body as you think about it. Observe the emotions that arise. And then ask yourself, what would it feel like to let this go? Not to push it away, not to suppress it, but to release your grip on it, to allow it to float away like a leaf on a river. You may find that in that moment of release, a surprising sense of peace arises. A quiet space opens up. This is the freedom that letting go brings. Letting go does not mean giving up. It does not mean ceasing to care. It means caring wisely. It means discerning between what we can influence and what we cannot. It means showing up fully for life while recognizing that we do not control its outcomes. We can plant the seeds, but we cannot force them to grow. We can love, but we cannot dictate how others respond. We can prepare, but we cannot predict the future. When we let go of control, we open ourselves to a deeper intelligence, a flow of life that is beyond our limited understanding, but always moving toward balance and truth. This letting go also applies to our self-image. We carry so many identities, successful, spiritual, strong, generous, and we often feel fear when these identities are threatened. We resist change because it challenges who we think we are. But the truth is, who we are is not a fixed idea. It is not a static role. It is a fluid, evolving presence. And the more we cling to a particular version of ourselves, the more we suffer when life invites us to grow beyond it. To let go of identity is to become spacious. It is to allow ourselves the freedom to change, to learn, to make mistakes, to be human. It is to stop defending ourselves and start discovering ourselves. And in that discovery, we find a self that is not limited by labels or roles, but vast like the sky, open, clear, boundless. Letting go also means releasing the past. We all carry wounds, regrets, and memories that shape our present experience. And while it is important to honor our history, we must be careful not to become prisoners of it. The past is a place to learn from, not a place to live in. When we keep reliving old pain, we reinforce the neural pathways of suffering. But when we bring mindful awareness to these memories, when we hold them with compassion and then allow them to go, we create space for new possibilities. We create space for healing. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful expressions of letting go. It does not mean condoning harm or forgetting what happened. It means choosing not to carry the weight of resentment any longer. It means setting yourself free. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. Forgiveness is not for them. It is for you. It is the gift you give yourself to reclaim your peace. Letting go extends to the future as well. So much fear comes from trying to control what has not yet happened. We plan, we predict, we worry, we strategize. And while preparation has its place, we often cross the line into obsession. We imagine worst-case scenarios. We rehearse conversations that may never happen. We try to guarantee outcomes that are beyond our power. This future clinging creates anxiety. It pulls us out of the present, where life is actually happening. The antidote is trust. Trust in the unfolding of life. Trust in your own capacity to respond. Trust in the wisdom that guides all things. To live in this state of letting go is to live lightly. It is to move through life with open hands instead of clenched fists. It is to experience joy, not because everything is perfect, but because you are not resisting what is. It is to love without possession, to grieve without despair, to dream without attachment. This is the middle way, not grasping, not pushing away, but abiding in the balance of now. Meditation is the training ground for this way of being. Every time you sit, you are practicing letting go of distraction, letting go of judgment, letting go of the need to fix or change. You return to the breath again and again, releasing each thought as it arises. This simple act rewires the mind. It teaches you that you do not have to chase every thought, believe every story, or control every emotion. You can let go. You can rest. And as this practice deepens, it begins to inform your daily life. You find yourself reacting less. You find yourself needing less. You find yourself fearing less because you are no longer trying to hold everything together. You are letting life breathe through you. You are trusting the ground beneath your feet. You are releasing the illusion that you must carry it all. This is not a path of detachment in the cold sense. It is a path of radical aliveness. When you let go of clinging, you are not left with emptiness. You are left with spaciousness, a space where joy can arise, a space where love can flourish, a space where fear has no place to root itself. This is the calm and fearless heart, not because it has no emotions, but because it is not ruled by them. Not because it never breaks, but because it breaks open, not closed. The Buddha's teaching on letting go is not just a practice. It is a way of seeing the world. It is a lens through which we view every experience, every relationship, every thought. It is the understanding that life is a flow and we suffer when we try to make it static. It is the wisdom that knows how to hold and how to release, how to engage and how to rest, how to live with depth and meaning without attachment to results. And this wisdom is not far away. It is not hidden in ancient texts or reserved for enlightened masters. It is here, in this breath, in this moment, waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to soften your grip, waiting for you to come home. If you feel that homecoming in your heart, if you are ready to walk the path of letting go and discover the freedom that lies on the other side, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Together, let us release what no longer serves. Embrace the beauty of this fleeting life and live from the open, fearless heart that was always within us.